What's going on, guys? This is Foresight Capital, and today we're going to talk about Palantir, the huge day that they had, and ultimately where the stock could trade over the next couple of trading days. So yesterday I actually made a video stating that today should be a very big trading day as we were coming to the end of a little bit of a wedge pattern that had been formed, and I mentioned that I thought that bulls would come in, start buying the stock, push it above this yellow resistance line that we have been trading along, and possibly see a run up to the 2770 or so area that is constituted by this red resistance. And we saw exactly that today, but a large portion of the breakout was actually due to Palantir closing an FDA contract worth about $44 million in revenue. So they announced that this morning pretty close to market open, and they surged almost immediately into the open. Now what's interesting about this contract is that it is again with a government agency, which constitutes a very large portion of their revenues, and that's something that Palantir is really trying to work on as a whole, is having clients that aren't solely focused in one sector, because if the government decided to pull their contracts for whatever reason, it would be a very large portion of their overall revenue. But what's also interesting is that next year they've guided at just over $1 billion in revenue, and this is about $44 million, so a little over 4% of their overall revenue for the year came out of this one announcement. However, we saw a 21% increase in the price action today and are seeing the stock rise even more in after hours to about $30.20 per share. What that leads me to believe is people are willing to pay many multiples of any sort of revenue for Palantir, and really that kind of plays into the whole bull case for this stock. It seems that people, when there's some small percentage increase in revenue, there's going to be a large percentage increase in the stock price. However, I have to think that some of this selling or some of this buying action was actually as a result of pent-up demand to break above some of these resistance levels that we talked about. And so while I can't say that it was all related to these technical levels, and a lot of you come here and mention that technicals don't mean anything at all, I think we can see kind of some patterns trending here. So we broke above this yellow resistance line, which again is the $24.60 per share area on this big candle. And then we had a couple more big green candles where we ran up to the next level of resistance, which is 2770, notated by this red line. The price failed to break and stumbled a bit. We ran up pretty close to 2770 again over the next trading hour and failed to break. And then we had 1/3 push at this resistance level before ultimately closing just above it. This candle actually closed at 2817, and then the very next candle had a little bit of a pullback, and the low for this candle was 2772, right there at the 2770, what would now be support line, and then we've just been taking off ever since then. So even though the stock had some fundamental news come out that ultimately drove a large portion of this stock price movement, we still had this wedge that needed to move in some direction. And I think we were going to see some portion of this breakout as a result of kind of filling in this wedge and ultimately needing to continue the long-term uptrend, which is notated by this red line. So again, not all of this I can say is related specifically to technicals, but we can kind of see the trend here that we broke and used previous resistance as resistance again, and then turned around and used it as support. So what do I think is going to happen over the next couple of trading days? I don't think that we're going to continue the run to all-time highs. Personally, that absolutely could happen. It really depends on how bulls come in and play with this stock. There isn't really any level of resistance between where we currently are at just over $30 per share and all-time highs of $33.50, but that's another 10%, and I don't see that happening after a 21% daily increase without at least a little bit of a pullback. So there's really two areas that I would kind of focus on, the first of which and the most obvious of which being this new red, what would be now support line. Previous resistance tends to become support after you break through a level like this, technically speaking. We can see that it's already been used as support once. However, that's not a very strong indicator given that the price had just broken above it, but we can see that it did trend down to that line and then kind of hover before ultimately continuing its run up. So what I would say is that over the next couple of days, if we see just a small pullback in price, we're going to see the stock kind of come back down and test this 27.70 per share range. When we test that level, there's really going to be two ways that could play out. Either the bulls are going to come in and confirm this uptrend and continue the push towards all-time highs of 33.50 and higher, or the bulls are going to start taking their profits, get scared that the stock could fall a little bit more, and the bears have an opportunity to come back in and push this down. Now we've really got two levels if we fall below this red 27.70 support level that the stock could ultimately end up. The first of which being the previous support and resistance line, which is the yellow line here, of about $24.60 per share. If we see a clean break through this 27.70, we could see a couple of days of slow downtrend to the roughly $24.60 per share range. If this plays out over a couple of day period though, then we could ultimately see the long-term uptrend kind of be used as support in lieu of the yellow support line. And given that the long-term uptrend is realistically outpacing this yellow support line, we could see a pullback to anywhere along this red line for confirmation that the long-term uptrend is going to continue. So that's kind of if the stock were to break to the downside, the next level that you would need to worry about. I don't foresee any huge pullback, but the next level of support that we have is this red semi-squiggly line. It's the 200 period moving average. Remember, this is an hourly chart, so this is realistically the average price of the closing of a candlestick over the past 200 hours. That would be kind of baseline support. I don't foresee falling back down to the green level as we've now kind of wedged ourselves above that price point for now. So unless something were to come out with another one of their contracts or any other sort of negative kind of press release, I don't see falling to that level. Now, if we come back and we test this support line at 27.70 and we do hold it and there comes volume in, I could see the bulls pushing this thing to 33.50 within 3 or 4 trading days. In fact, what I said when we broke above this yellow line that we could see this happen, this little run up from 24.60 up to 27.70, I said that could happen in about a day or two, and it happened in the same trading day. So that just goes to show that bulls are willing to come in and buy if the news is there. Without any other sort of news events, though, I could realistically see this next 10% leg up to all-time highs happening over the next 3 to 4 trading days. And so don't expect it to happen over the next day. It would be great, absolutely, for people who own the stock for that to happen within one day. But I think the stock's going to have to cool off just a bit here. So again, kind of how to play this over the next couple of trading days. If you missed out on an entry and are looking for a good entry point, possibly put a buy-in at around 27.70 using this as support with a stop loss somewhere in the 24.60 if you're willing to risk that roughly $3 per share, because you do at that point have upside potential of about $6 per share, setting up a really nice risk to reward. If you're looking to take profits, again, you might kind of wait to see how the trend plays out and take profits at 27.70 on a pullback if you think that the stock looks weak, or wait until 33.50 or hold. It's entirely up to you. In fact, I think there are a lot of people here in the community that are holding Palantir for the long term, in which case, congratulations, you just made 20% in a day, and hopefully it continues. So that's just kind of the scenario over the next couple of days. Either we see a little bit of a pullback to this previous resistance, or if any sort of bad news comes in, possibly all the way down to the yellow 24.60 area. But I think we're pretty much past the green support line for at least the near-term future, and realistically probably going to make a push towards all-time highs over the next couple of trading days. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment. Hopefully you made a ton of money today. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe if this video brought you value as we continue to make updates on this stock, and catch you in the next one.